Thanks again for having us today. Our presentation will begin with a review of the data collected during the discovery process. We will then focus on what we learned about Krafty Kustoms and the main management challenges that must be addressed. Finally, we will explain how we plan on positioning our solutions within the client support and review the additional information needed to complete the project. The discovery, we review the client's scope letter, the business concept, the conditional site approval, the building plans, and the preliminary financial assumptions. The information helps us understand the client's vision, the service plan for the business, the proposed facility, and the initial funding expectations. However, it also confirmed that several important assumptions, including startup costs, equipment requirements, operating expenses, and revenue projections, still need to be independently validated. Documents confirm that Krafty Kustoms has moved beyond the idea stage. The client has a location, conditional site approval, and plans for a 70 by 40-foot building with 3 service bays. However, the available space must support repairs, lift installation, hard services, fabrication, powder coating, sandblasting, audio installation, detailing, and customer operations. Therefore, we must confirm that the equipment, workflow, safety requirements, and service mix can realistically fit within the proposed facility. Our discovery shows that Krafty Kustoms has a strong value proposition by combining automotive customization and ongoing vehicle service, all under one roof. The Fayetteville market also appears to align well with the company's target customer, including military personnel, truck owners, off-road customers, and customization enthusiasts. The main concern is not the business idea. The concern is the execution and funding readiness. The current funding numbers, including the original $175,000 and the now $250,000 client estimate, are still planning figures and have not yet been fully validated. Since the shop wants to launch with several services, each one brings equipment, space, staffing, and cash flow requirements. Our role is to turn the client's vision into a structured, evidence-based plan that shows what it can truly cost to open, what services should launch first, and whether the business can support the required financing.
Hello everyone, I'm Romario and I'll be looking at the management challenges identified throughout the discovery process. Our discovery process identified 6 key management challenges that must be addressed before Krafty Kustoms is ready for funding and launch. First, the business needs a realistic funding requirement supported by a lender-ready financial package. Secondly, launching too many services at once could stretch both the available budget and the facility's capacity. We also found that many startup cost estimates still need validation through vendor quotes and contractor estimates. Operationally, the business requires a clearly defined staffing plan, service mix, and workflow to maximize the use of its 3 service bays. Finally, the projected revenues must be supported by realistic pricing, service capacity, and market demand. Most importantly, any recommendation we provide must be practical and actionable so that the client can confidently move from planning to execution. Now, from here onwards, we'll be looking at the top 3 management challenges identified through the discovery process. One of our most significant discoveries involved the funding requirements for this project. So initially, the owner estimated that approximately $175,000 would be needed to launch the business. As planning progressed, the estimate increased to $250,000. However, after developing our preliminary financial model, we found that the estimated startup requirements is closer to about $846,000. 500,000, which, as you can see, is significantly higher than the initial estimates. It is important to note that this is not a final funding request. The estimates include startup costs such as equipment, site preparation, build out expenses, inventory, and working capital. These figures mirror those of the industry standard and were validated through vendor codes and contractor estimates. So the key takeaway is that our role is not to justify an initial estimate, but to determine the realistic amount of funding required to launch the business successfully and present that information in a lender ready format. Our second management challenge identified covers the launch scope and the bay capacity. While Crafty Customs plans to offer a wide range of services to include maintenance, lift kits, detailing, audio installation, powder coating, and fabrication, the facility has only three service bays available for daily operation. This creates an important management decision. Rather than asking whether the business can eventually offer all these services, we need to determine whether it can successfully launch them without overloading the available space, staff, or budget. Based on our analysis, a phased implementation strategy may reduce startup risk while allowing the business to generate revenue and expand additional services over time. This approach also demonstrates to lenders that the business has a realistic and manageable operational plan. So our third and final management challenge we're focusing on for this presentation focuses on lenders needing evidence. This discovery highlights what lenders are truly looking for. As consultants, we understand that lenders don't finance ideas, they finance businesses that can support their projections with credible evidence. This means that recommendations must be backed by reliable data, which includes vendor codes for startup costs, market research that validates customer demand, financial projections based on realistic assumptions, and an operational plan that clearly explains staffing, workflow, and service delivery. By combining all of this information into an evidence based business plan, we strengthen the client's credibility and improve the likelihood of securing financing. Ultimately, our goal is to provide Crafty Customs with more than just a report. We want to deliver a practical roadmap that gives the owner confidence when presenting the business to lenders and moving towards a successful launch. So, with these key discovery findings established, I'll now hand over to Nicholas, who will discuss how our team plans to position these solutions and what additional information is needed to complete the consulting project.
Good day, everyone. I'm Nicholas Dawes, and now I'd like to explain how our consulting team intend to gain client buy-in and successfully sell our solution to Crafty Customs. One of the most important things we learned throughout this consulting project is that we are not simply delivering a report. We are helping the client move closer to achieving his vision. Instead of focusing only on the technical recommendations, our goal is to provide confidence, clarity, and a practical roadmap that will help secure funding and support the growth of the business. First, we will focus on the client's goal. Mr. Edwards' vision is to expand Crafty Customs by opening a permanent shop while securing the financial resources needed to make that happen. Every recommendation we make will be tied directly to the objective, demonstrating our plan supports both business growth and long term sustainability. Second, we will support our recommendations with evidence. Rather than relying on opinions, our proposal will include financial projections, price estimates, facility requirements, market research, and industry data. This allows potential lenders and investors to see that our recommendations are backed by facts and careful analysis. We also recognize the importance of communicating the risk. Instead of presenting challenges as obstacles, we will explain how delaying certain investments or underfunding the project could limit future growth. This helps the client understand why strategic planning is critical to long term success. In addition, we will provide multiple implementation options rather than a single solution. Offering phased recommendation gives the client flexibility to move forward based on available funding and business priorities while still making measurable progress towards opening the new facilities. Finally, we want to ensure our work is practical and usable. Our final deliverables will include tools, financial models, and supporting documents that Crafty Customs can confidently use when meeting with lenders, vendors, and future business partners. Ultimately, our message to the client is simple. This plan is designed to protect your investment, strengthen your business, and significantly improve your chances of securing the funding needed to make your vision a reality. So now I would like to discuss the proposed solution package that Crafty Customs will implement. First, we will develop a validated startup cost model. This Excel-based financial model will estimate all major setup costs, including site improvements, construction, equipment, inventories, working capital, and other expenses. This provides the client with realistic understanding of the capital required to open the new shop. We will also prepare a lender-ready business plan. This plan will clearly present Crafty Custom business story, market opportunity, operating strategy, financial projections, and funding requests. It is designed to give lenders confidence that the business is financially viable and well prepared for growth. Third, we will create a vendor code package, which include documented estimates for equipment, utilities, insurance, and other startup costs. Having these codes strengthen the credibility of the funding request by demonstrating that the financial projections are supported by actual market pricing. In addition, we will provide a phased launch roadmap that outlines which activities should be completed first, what can be delayed if necessary, and how to reduce financial risk during implementation. Finally, we'll develop a funding readiness scorecard that identifies the business strength, highlights any remaining gaps, and outlines the steps needed before approaching lenders. Thank you.
This slide identifies the remaining information needed to finalize a lender-ready plan for Crafty Customs. The first priority is to obtain rent and vendor and contractor quotes for the largest startup costs, including construction, utilities, equipment insurance, and the facility build-out. Next, the business needs to confirm its pricing and sales assumptions by service, including expected monthly jobs, labor hours, and part costs. We also need to finalize operating assumptions for staffing, payroll, shop hours, software utilities, and working capital. A final facility layout is important because the workflow must safely support mechanical repair, customization, powder coating, audio work, storage, and customer areas. Finally, lender requirements must be confirmed so the financial model includes the right collateral, cash flow, and the debt service information. These items will make the funding request more accurate and more credible. Our work plan follows five connected steps. First, we begin with discovery by confirming the client's goal, services, facility scope, launch priorities, and funding objectives. Second, we validate assumptions by collecting vendor quotes, competitor information, market data, pricing details, and operating assumptions. Third, we use the financial model to test startup costs, monthly expenses, revenue capital, break even, cash flow, and different financing scenarios. Fourth, we review the model with the client and make refinements based on lender expectations and potential risks. Finally, we deliver a complete package that includes the business plan, financial forecast, funding request, launch roadmap, and punishment priorities. This process is designed to move Crafty Customs away from rough estimates and towards evidence-based decisions that can support a stronger funding application. Success for this project means more than producing a business plan or financial spreadsheet. First, it means funding clarity. Crafty Customs should understand the realistic amount of capital needed for construction, equipment inventory, working capital, and early operating expenses. Second, success means lower launch risk. The client should know which services and purchases are essential for opening and which investments can be phased in after revenue starts. Third, the plan should increase lender confidence by supporting the funding request with vendor quotes, market research, a complete financial forecast, cash flow projections, and repayment strategy. Finally, the client should leave with an actionable roadmap that includes priorities, milestones, and a practical timeline. The real measure of success is whether Crafty Customs can use his work to secure financing and open with the strong financial control.